My next guests are Dr. Sandra Peter and Kai Riemer, and they take a look at AI through the lens of Star Wars. And much like the Force, AI has both a dark and a light side. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Is this your first time at South by Southwest?
Not even our second, it's our third one.
How many?
Well, a second South by Southwest Sydney,
Yes.
because we have to be there at every South by. And we've been going to the Austin one for a few years now.
Fantastic. And what keeps bringing you back?
Oh, South by?
South by.
Oh, look, the vibe, it's where the future is made and where we learn a lot, but also where, we get to meet lots of interesting people.
And we get to recharge for the whole year. Like the ideas, the people, the events, everything that surrounds South by just gets you going for the rest of the year.
Brilliant. And so your session, 36 skills you need to get ahead in the next decade, yes, including AI. List all 36, go. No, I'm joking. What is the key takeaway that you hope attendees get from this session?
So we think the next decade is going to be one of the most disorienting in people's careers, but it's also likely going to be one of the most impactful. And it's going to be quite messy. What the changes that we're seeing are not linear trends, they're quite messy shifts. And we're hoping we can equip people with the right skills to do that. And 36 sounds like a lot. We talk about those 36 skills as a Swiss Army knife. Yeah. So you've got your knife and your fork and also that weird sporky thing that you never know what it's going to be good for.
What is this for?
But for that one instance, it's the perfect thing.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few skills, and we've kind of spent the last year and a bit talking to global leaders, CEOs, Nobel Prize winners, former heads of state about how the world's changing and what people need to know next.
People at South by. So one reason we go to Texas is to meet interesting people, and we sit
because
down,
everything's bigger in Texas.
We shove a microphone in their faces, and it's like let's talk about the future, talk about skills.
Yeah.
And so we talk about three things with these people. How do they see the world changing? What are they learning? And what do they think they themselves and the people around them will need to learn to be equipped for the next 3 to 10 years?
And so the role that South by Southwest plays in shaping that future does it start merely by bringing people together?
I think it does start by bringing people together. I think you cannot replace with pretty much, well, this is going to be online, but you cannot replace the conversations, the serendipity, the new insights that you get from something like South by Southwest. And I think for us, we've spoken there to Nobel Prize winners, to global CEOs, but also to chefs and to musicians and actors and so on. I don't think you can get there, and you can get that anywhere else. And if you really want to capture the nuances of how the world's changing, South by Southwest is a good place to start.
Yeah. And we do talk to these leaders. So 70 plus people have made it into the latest report with their quotes and ideas. But we also do a deep dive into a lot of sort of pools of data. And one of those pools is basically all the titles and abstracts of South by Southwest for the last decade or so, to see what are the trends, because stuff that is being discussed in South by, we can actually track and see them emerge in places like The Economist and the Harvard Business Review 3 to 5 years later. So South by is really a leading voice in where the future is made, and then also sort of makes it into our research.
Yeah,
and you'll see things like quantum, right? They were on the South by agenda for quite a few years, and over the last few years we've seen it move from just the people who do quantum to people who work in different industries talking about how quantum is influenced. It's actually had a tenfold increase, and you'll see it at South by Southwest Sydney here.
And is that the kind of thing, I'm just thinking about technology in general and advances in technology, that the average person may not necessarily be aware of? Those in the field are aware of what's coming, but those that aren't, it's only when it arrives that we know what it is. Is that a pattern that you see emerging?
Look, this is where the research comes in, because we call it the skills horizon. It's an instrument, think like Gartner hype cycle for skills, but it has 3 horizons. It's got the stuff that is immediately important, that you actually should be proficient in now, or you should catch up on. Then you've got your next horizon that you should prepare for, and then you've got stuff on the horizon a bit further out, emerging skills, of which quantum we call it quantum literacy, is one where you actually want to brush up now around what is quantum, how does it work, what's the impact going to be, to know whether it is actually important for you right now, or whether you might have 5 to 10 years to prepare, but you do need to know. And a lot of leaders are getting asked by their boards, and they need to know.
But if you think about things like artificial intelligence fluency, so understanding enough about the tech to understand how it impacts every one of us, because we'll all have a relationship to AI, whether you're in the boardroom or on the front line of an organization, and we're all in R&D. So people need to understand what it is. That's an immediate kind of skill that people need to have. But then as we look at things longer term, we see 5 generations in the workplace currently. We've never had 5 generations in the workplace. Now, managing across that complexity, understanding how you've got people who have very different understandings of what work is, where work gets done, by whom, what work is for, what a brand is for, how do you be trust at scale or continuously if you're in an organization. Those are all types of skills that we need to know, some of them in the shorter term, some of them in the longer term, to sustain growth or to take advantage of new opportunities.
Absolutely. And how has, I mean, the world changed very much so in 2020, and our relationship with workplaces and with work in general. Has that impacted greatly your studies?
Yes, it's almost like we scripted this, which we didn't, because we have 2 big skills categories which we call amplifiers. One is AI and generative AI, which are the kind of skills that underpin other skills and lift them up. And the other one is what we call productive workplace communities. So the idea of crafting functioning teams in a world that has very much changed, right? Where working from home, working from anywhere, anytime, in any way is increasingly the norm. And then for leaders, that presents challenges, because out of all this difference, diversity, and individual preferences, how do you actually craft functioning teams when location might not be what unites you, right? And I think these are skills that people are still grappling with, but they are, when you get them right, they're real amplifiers, because they can lift up productivity at the systems level, not just at at the individual level.
And it also is like it's sort of an enforced skill that you need to acquire in a way, isn't it? By circumstance.
There's quite a few kind of enforced skills, right? If you think about energy transition and so on, which we very much see as a very inelegant transition coming up, right? And it will require people to think quite deeply about what that means. But then you've also got enforced skills like geopolitics. I mean, we've never had to think about really how geopolitics impacts us every day, but now we have a range of things that impact, whether it's our supply chain or our workforce, or just how people trust where an organization speaks publicly and so on. I think increasingly those skills are kind of forced upon us, and we need to come to grips with them.
Yep, absolutely. And how do you think that South by Southwest Sydney can change the trajectory of someone's career or business?
Oh, look, chance encounters with really interesting people, right? Waiting in line at South by is the best place to have a good conversation, start a new career, I guess.
Fantastic. And don't be shy is what you're saying.
No. And also listening to great talks and hanging around after, because you can learn a lot from the questions other people are asking of the speakers after a session, or just having a chat with them. So it's really, those moments.
And very much encouraging people who attend sessions at South by to get involved, ask questions, talk to the speakers afterwards, and stop people in the hallways, have a conversation with someone you haven't met before, and ask them about what it's like to do the thing that they do.
And always go and pick a session that you didn't normally have on your agenda, because there's so much stuff going on outside of your immediate interest and diet, but it's just so easy to walk into an idea stage or a small podcast session or someplace else that you wouldn't normally go to. I think that's also the beauty of
spontaneity is a skill.
It's probably one of the most diverse conferences. We're in the upskilling business, right? So we upskill leaders and people, so we go to a lot of conferences, which are great, but they're usually sort of
the one-track conference, one idea conference.
So in a sense, South by is for omnivores, right? For people who like lots of different things rather than the one topic kind of event.
And speaking of being omnivorous, the profile we got at the end of Skills Horizon was that of the curious leader or the curious individual. I think it's going to be the theme in a very much in a disorienting world. Being curious and being omnivorous was actually one of the findings of our research.
There you go.
So the
Start at
curious
South by.
the curious leader attends South by.
And finally, what role do you see South by Southwest playing in the future of work and skills?
I've got a good answer. As a collection ground for us to distill into a report that will then inform the future of skills and work. So that's one way, at least for us.
Yes,
that's really for us.
Because the Skills Horizon is an annual thing, right? We've now got the 2025 one. There will be one every year, and South by is a good place to get a pulse for things, but it's also a place where things get made. There are so many things, if you look over the years, that started at South by, from conversations that people were having where, a new idea was born, or a new type of product, or a new music, or a new cultural trend, and so on. So I think it's very much a place to get a pulse for what's next, but also to build what's next.
Fantastic.
So if you're one of those leaders or executives speaking and you see us line up, we might be there to hit you up for an interview. So thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, expect the unexpected. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Sandra and Kai, for joining me in the South by Southwest Sydney studio.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. See you next year.
See you next year.
Yes, always.
And you can watch more of these videos at youtube.com/South by Southwest Sydney.